Namaste guys, welcome along. My name is Jayadharma and this is another of our Thoughtful Thursdays. So just relax. Maybe, close your eyes. If you're tired, you can lie down, but of course you run the risk of going to sleep, which is fine too. Nothing wrong with a bit of sleep. Yeah. And you're just sitting comfortably, right? And you try and sit fairly tall. And you just place your mind on your breathing. Of course, if you've just eaten, then you can't breathe very deeply. But if you haven't, then you can. Simple. You place your mind on the breathing, excuse me, and this music. And you just let the music waft over you. And you may have some issues on your mind. You try your best just to put them aside for the next, 30 or 40 minutes as we focus on this practice of essentially Yoga Nidra. And then we'll have a talk and then some mantra meditation. And if you find your mind kind of, harking back to whatever is causing you some anxiety, and just recognize it, acknowledge it, and bring it back to what we're doing. Whether we're doing this breathing, this relaxation practice, this pre-meditation practice, or we're talking, or we're actually doing the mantra yoga. And you slowly sink into a nice rhythm with your breath. You soften your face, your eyes very peacefully closed, your shoulders and just drape away, resting. Maybe the back of the hands on the thighs or on your lap. And you just start to breathe. Become aware of the breath entering the nostrils, gently filling the lungs. And of course, the breath exiting on the exhalation. Your mind focusing on the inward breath and the outward breath. Your mind focusing on the music and the whole experience. Because if your mind is not somewhere, it'll be somewhere else. And that somewhere else could be sort of not so pleasant, not so soothing, not so relaxing. Slowly filling the lungs and allowing them to empty. No force, no force. But at the same time, if you haven't eaten, a nice deep breath is very rejuvenating and at the same time relaxing. And you step a little away from the practice and become aware that you're breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Your body is just breathing, It's being directed by you, the living being within the body, directing all the breathing, in and out. Then you step back even further, continuing to breathe, continuing to bring your attention to your breath and to the music. But this time we bring our attention as well to our thoughts, to our mind. In no way trying to attempt to, alter the state of the mind or block the thoughts or so-called empty the mind, which is pretty much impossible anyhow, just observe them. Just observe them. As you're observing your breath, now observe your mind. Just like, waves. You sit on the grass, or you lie on a picnic throw on a nice day. You just watch the clouds pass through the sky. They enter your field of vision, and eventually they leave. Yeah. It's the same with the thoughts. Some of the thoughts can be, pretty neutral, kind of benign. Some of them can be very pleasant. Some of them can be ugly. Of course, the point of this practice, this mindfulness practice, is really to establish the fact that because you can watch your mind, you're clearly separate from the mind. Just like you can change your mind. Yeah? You buy something at the shop, you change your mind, you take it back. I changed my mind. Yeah. If you can change your mind, even the language indicates that it is a possession of you. And it is one of the foundational platforms for an understanding of yoga. I am not the mind. I am Brahman. I am the living being, the life force within, dwelling within the body. The witness of the physical changes in my body as I, age. And of course, we're all aging from birth. Yeah. The witness of the mental chatter, the flow of mind, the flow of desires and thoughts, etc. I'm that living being within. And this physical body that we're wearing, kind of like a garment, it had a beginning, called our birth. It will have an end, called the death. But it is not the death of you, it is the death simply of the body. Yeah. So the death experience for the yogi is very similar to, when you go to take a shower. You just remove the garments, you put them in the dirty clothes basket, the laundry basket, and you enter the shower. The death experience is like that. We take off this garment, this physical body that we've been wearing for 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 years. And we just take another one. Take on another body. Move on. Knowing that you're not the body, knowing that you're not the mind, is such a relief. Yeah, it is such a relief, because if you're lucky or unlucky, depending on your viewpoint, the body ages and it becomes a bit embarrassing, man. Things kind of start to fall away, sag. You get sick, etc. And the mind, well, that's always embarrassing. If you had to, divulge the content of your mind to somebody very truthfully, it would be like, whoa, please don't ask me to do that. But you're not the mind. You're this amazing living being within. And the journey of yoga and yoga meditation and philosophy is all about discovering your true nature. So we'll just put that aside. If you need to, take a stretch, stand up, whatever, all fine. So I just asked you a question, Have you ever told a lie? I have. A few too many, actually. Could be a little white lie, could be a big, fat, black porky, as they call them, Telling lies. Does it make you a liar? Sort of yes and sort of no. Yes, you may have a tendency to tell lies, right? But you're not a liar. If you were a liar, right? If you were hardwired, you were programmed to lie, then you would tell lies all the time. Yeah? Not just, when it suits you, because that's when we tell lies, that it suits my circumstances, yeah? But if you were a liar, you'd be telling lies. You'd be a pathological liar. You couldn't tell the truth because you're programmed not to tell the truth. You're programmed to lie. Right? No, you're not a liar. All right? We're not our tendencies. This is a habit that has crept into our lives. And the same thing goes for many bad habits and addictions. Yeah, you're not an alcoholic. You're not a drug addict. You're not a thief. You're not a pedophile. Right? These all reflect the mental landscape that because it's the mind for many of us, right, that is dictating our behavior. People who don't realize that they're not the mind cannot withdraw, pull back from the mind and disengage from the dictates of the mind. And so the mental landscape that is built up, right, through, essentially it's built up through input from the senses. Right? What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you do with your senses, right? It cultivates this mental landscape. And it's not just there from this lifetime, but from many previous lifetimes. So some people, they really identify with their bad habits. They say, I'm a liar, I'm a thief, I'm a whatever. But no, you're not, right? And some people will argue, right? Oh, I'm a chocoholic, right? Same thing, yeah. What do you mean you're a chocoholic? Well, ever since my birth, I remember there was chocolate in the house. My mother used to eat chocolate to basically make her feel good. She used to give me chocolate to calm me down when I was a bratty 2 or 3 year old. And I still take refuge in chocolate even now. And I'm 30 or I'm 40 or I'm 60 or I'm whatever. I'm a chocoholic. No, you're not. Some of these habits, whatever these habits are, right, are really deeply ingrained, and very hard to break out of the groove, but they're not you, right? They're not you. I remember my friend Radhakrishna Das, who often speaks on this channel, not so much these days, but he mentioned this analogy, back in the olden days, before there was motorized vehicles, they used to have, horse and buggy or whatever they call it, yeah. And they didn't have roads, right, as we know them, not asphalt roads, right, not even paths, right. But people would have destinations that they would go to, right, and they would traverse that destination in their spoked steel wheels drawn by the horse, right, and it would make grooves in the ground, and if it was wet, well, those grooves would go deep, and then it would dry out, and it would form kind of like a groove. Yeah, it would form a groove. And then all the travelers that would follow them would purposefully sit their wheels or find the groove, because the axle width would be fairly standard, I presume. And they would just sit there, and the horses would pull them along, and they're quite comfortable doing that, going from A to B or C or D or E or wherever, right? And so they didn't have to steer it. They're kind of not that much, right? So they just sit there. They're in this groove, right? And quite hard to get out, because, the wheels get kind of deep. And this is the condition that we find ourselves in with our bad habits. But you can You can change those habits through meditation. Let me just relate to you my experience, not my whole experience. I'm not going to go through the whole life experience, but how I got into meditation was, you know, I came from a reasonably well-to-do household, well-to-do financially, no other way, right? It's not as though I came from a household of advanced yogis who had great knowledge. No, just financially. So I was sort of brought up with a silver spoon in my mouth and a pretty good karmic reaction. So, you know, when I was 20, I had, you know, money and my youth and a very attractive girlfriend and a fancy car and all the stuff, all the trappings, you know, clothes and houses and all the rest of it, yeah. But no spirituality, no knowledge, no wisdom, right? I'm just, like many of us, we just kind of get, you know, put into life without a great deal of preparation. And I started to develop some bad habits around, many things. I had quite a few bad habits, but there was one bad habit that really, really annoyed me. I started to, I used to work evenings, work nights, yeah, afternoon and nights in a really fancy pants restaurant in Sydney. And, you know, I had full access to everything, all the food, all the beverage. You know, it was really run on a very casual basis, right? But anyhow, we'd finish work and, you know, I would travel home. And it was about a 20-minute ride in my car. And evenings I would pass this one restaurant. It was a sort of a Turkish restaurant. They used to, you know, I don't know what time they opened till, but it seemed like they were open 24/7, right? Anyhow, they were always open, kind of like welcoming me in a sense. I felt it. And they used to serve the most amazing baklava. You know what baklava is? Yeah, that gooey, honey, sugar-drenched sort of pastry. Yeah. And so I started to, you know, I was already kind of full, right? Physically, my belly wasn't that hungry, but I used to go in there for a bit of a sugar hit and a bit of a coffee, yeah. And it was pretty intense, you know, the black coffee and the sweet sugar, and I kind of liked it. Anyhow, I started to develop a habit, and it started to annoy me because, you know, the coffee wouldn't sort of enhance my night's sleep, and the sugary pastry stuff made my stomach feel terrible the next day. But the habit started to become more and more entrenched, just like those wheels on the wagons, yeah? And before I knew it, wow, you know, I felt like I had this mini addiction going on. And it just really annoyed me because, well, the physical side effects, but more especially the fact that I felt out of control, yeah? And I remember one night, this is the night that really kind of underlined and highlighted my problem for me. And it's kind of humorous because I knew the restaurant was coming up, yeah? So I floored it in the car, you know, I put the accelerator down and sort of sped by. And I thought, that's it, out of the way. And then like 200 meters past the restaurant, there was a traffic light that you could do a U-turn at. And guess what? I did a U-turn and I went back to the restaurant and I thought, wow. Now, I don't know if you can relate to this. I'm sure many people can, right? Whatever your bad habit is obviously not going to be baklava. It might be something else. Yeah, a tendency to get angry or a tendency to do this or that you know is not good for you or anybody else in your life, right? Not long after that, right? Now there's quite a bit of detail I'm just purposefully leaving out of this whole story. But not long after that, I stumbled, literally stumbled across meditation. I wasn't really what you would call, you know, the quintessential sort of candidate for spirituality in the sense that, you know, I wasn't really into philosophy, I wasn't this, I wasn't that. I was a vegetarian, right? But that was just a sort of a physical way to kind of govern my appetites, etc., my physical appetite, right? Anyhow, I took up the practice of mantra yoga, mantra meditation. And I've got to say, immediately I felt like some strength. I'd felt that the reins had been given back to me. Yeah. Because, you know, in the yoga system, we're talking about wagons. So, you know, they often give this analogy, you know, you're in a wagon, right, or a chariot, and it's being pulled away by, you know, 5 really strong, wild almost horses. These are the senses, the eyes, the nose, the ears, the genitals, etc., right? And you've lost control. You've thrown the reins away, right? And the practice of mantra meditation gave me back the reins. Not immediately, but I became aware that there were reins. Because when I was learning mantra meditation, not only did I learn the mantras and practice them, but I also, well, you know, the people who taught me shared with me some wisdom, something similar to what, not dissimilar to what I'm sharing with you today, right? I got the reins back and I started to feel a little stronger. The mantras, right? And we'll do a little bit of mantra meditation when we conclude this mini talk, right? They cleanse the mind. They kind of like, you know, putty up the grooves where the habits are formed, yeah. And they sort of start to remove those desires. Not only those desires, but many other desires. I found that with my practice, not only did that baklava thing start to sort of dry up and disappear, much like, you know, a sore on your arm, kind of, you know, the blood dries and eventually just sort of, it falls away after a week or so if you don't pick at it, yeah. But many of my other bad habits started to improve, and I felt confident. I felt some shelter. I felt relieved. And so, you know, what do you do when you feel that? You keep on doing it. You know, it's not rocket science, as they say, you know. So the practice of meditation is the way to address these bad habits, these addictions. You know, it's such a disconcerting experience to have some sort of addiction like that. Anybody who's been into alcohol or drugs or baklava, right, will tell you, right? They're the pedophiles, right? Many of them perpetrate their activities on their own children. And if you read interviews from these people, they'll tell you they feel disgusted with themselves, dirty, really, you know, ashamed. But they feel that I'm a pedophile. My father or my mother or father probably, you know, abused me when I was a child, right? And from a young age, I liked little boys and little girls. The trouble is, I'm no longer little. You know, when I was 5, it was okay, but now I'm 25 or 45 or 65. It's weird. Society knows it's weird, and I know it's weird, but I don't feel like I can do anything about it because, in inverted commas, I've always been a pedophile. I've always been, you know, a thief, a liar, a chocoholic. No, you can change these habits if you want to. Right? The mantras, as I said, they ease the mind, relax the mind, purify the mind, but that's just the beginning. More importantly, they nourish you, that living being, the witness of the body and the mind that we were talking about a little earlier, yeah. And so you get a bit stronger. You know, the guy who's holding the reins, he can't hold the reins because in the beginning he didn't even know there were reins there. And then when he gets to know there are reins, his biceps and his shoulder and his back aren't, you know, sufficiently strong to rein in those horses. The mantras, they start to feed the living being. And you can control those horses. You can control those desires. I remember my teacher ages ago, he said to me and his other students, he said, some of these desires, and I'm mixing up metaphors here, but you'll follow it, right? Is like a rabid dog in your bedroom. Rabid means, it's been infected with rabies, and when dogs get infected with rabies, not that I've ever seen one, they get really aggressive, really, really aggressive, and bark, and so you've got this rabid dog called your mind in your ear, barking, biting. You don't know what to do with it, and your life is a mess, and you feel out of control. You just don't know what to do, right? And in those circumstances, many people turn to, regrettably turn to more sources of problems, drugs and alcohol, maybe even suicide. So the mantras, they take this rabid dog, right? And they train it. They feed it, right? They soothe it. They calm it. Before you know it, the dog's out of the bedroom where you're trying to rest and have a peaceful life, and it's sort of just walking around the lounge room. It's a dog in the house, and some of these dogs aren't that well trained. So you don't like it there either. You get a bit stronger, and the dog gets right down the backyard, right? And you can't hear it barking. In fact, it even, pretty much stops barking. The desires start to fall away somewhat, or they become, less of a control, less of a hassle for you. And then the dog, it starts to circumambulate the perimeter of the house. It does what it's supposed to do in many ways, becomes your friend. It starts to do things for you, It starts to, be the guard dog, that sort of thing. But when the mind is like a rabid dog, it is your worst enemy. It is your worst enemy. But you can train it through the practice of meditation. So I think I'll conclude that there, and we'll do a little bit of meditation, give me a moment, and I'll just bring up a track. So just get comfortable again, We won't do this for very long. And we'll incorporate the breath. So I hope you can hear this mantra, Go, Ra, Ang, Ga. So you sit comfortably. You don't have to sit, in a particular yoga asana. You just sit comfortably. You start to re-establish your breathing, re-establish the contact with your connection with your breath. Again, the same cues and instructions as at the beginning. Tune into your breathing, don't force it. And try and establish this pattern, this rhythm, in connection with the chanting. Right? So you repeat the mantra silently as you breathe in, and you repeat the mantra with the guys, with the music, on the way out. Face soft, everything soft. Diaphragm moving up and down, mind resting. And it doesn't have to be, a hard sort of, drilled focus. No, restful meditation on the sound. It's a very soothing sound. Repeating the mantra silently in your mind as you breathe in and silently as you breathe out. chant aloud just for a few rounds, yeah? Thanks very much, guys, for watching. If you're interested in meditation, if any of this has sort of touched you, or it's, piqued some interest, this channel, is there are many kind of talks on meditation, and you can find what you want to your heart's content, literally. Okay? Namaste. Thank you very much.